All righty, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes here. Going to let people filter in. See some folks jumping in now. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in just a second. I'm going to let some more people filter in here. But excited to have you on the session today. All right. Well, it is just the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll give some people a couple minutes to filter in as I'm talking here. But thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Sammy Focarino. I'm the Senior Events Manager here at Consensus, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. This webinar is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the new era of demo automation with the first product experience platform. We help you get your buyers what they need when they need it. Our platform then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. As a result, you'll see rapid revenue growth and give your buyers a world-class customer experience. You can learn more at goconsensus.com. We're very excited to be bringing DemoFest, the largest event in pre-sales and buyer enablement, on the road again, as DemoFest X will be in London on October 8th and New York City on November 4th. These are our biggest events of the year. We're very excited to be bringing them back again. The London agenda is now live. You can view it and register at demofest.com, or I will also post the link to register to both of these events in the chat. All righty. We encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Our speaker will answer any questions at the close of the session, but you're welcome to post your questions at any time through the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. If at any time you're having technical difficulties, press the help button and someone will be able to assist you. And now I would like to introduce our speaker. Jack Cochran is a pre-sales leader, podcast host, and career advisor. He has over 15 years of experience unlocking organizational value and is passionate about coaching and helping those starting their pre-sales journey. Currently, Jack serves as the Director of Solutions Consulting at Action IQ. And with that, I will turn the rest of the time over to you, Jack.
Thanks. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you so much. Let me get started by doing that trick of trying to get my screen shared. Should hopefully go relatively flawlessly. So there we go. I think from the time that I gave you, Sammy, my kind of bio versus then the time that I put this together, I think I ticked over another 5-year gap. So I went from 15 plus years to 20 plus years, just because I like to keep the numbers nice and round. But I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've been half of that time on the customer side buying software and then selling software. For the other half, it's a really interesting kind of dual perspective on both of those. Have sat through very good demonstrations, both ones that I've given, ones I've seen people given, ones that have been given to me, as well as also very bad ones on both sides. But if you do want to find more about me, if you'd like to follow me, connect with me, you can scan the QR code or find me on LinkedIn, search Jack Cochran, you'll find me. I also do run a podcast. We'll talk about that at the very end as well. As Sammy had said, please, as you have questions, you go along, because I think some of these are a little bit maybe controversial ideas I'm going to be presenting today. Let's put it that way. Please throw them in the Q&A. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, answer questions at the very end. But we're going to kick this off without letting anyone sleep. We're going to start with some audience participation. No one gets to rest as they begin to join the webinar here. If you've not used this before, it's very easy. You can grab your phone and scan the QR code, or you can go to menti.com and then use the code there on the screen to participate. And it'll just ask you to answer the question in a word or a couple of words. The question is, as a technical seller, when someone asks a question or raises an objection during your presentation, what's your job? What's your goal to answer? And yes, I know it's our job to close the sale. Like the 30,000 foot view, we're here to try and close the deal. Let's take it down one level from that. Ultimately, what's our job when we are actually closing the deal? And hopefully you've gone to that. Let's go see if we've got some of these answers coming in here. So if you go ahead and do that, we're going to see some of these questions pop up. We see some already: to inform, understand, to sell, yes. Obviously, yes, to sell. Listen, propose a solution, identify the answer. For clarity, I love all of these. To be curious, build some confidence, and inform. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with any of these answers here today. to answer, right? A lot of understanding and answer and inform and listen tend to be some of the really big things. What I'm going to say is these are all good answers, but the piece that I'm going to try and help you to understand today, that your primary job when someone asks you a question is to build trust. It's your job to build trust with someone in response to any questions or objections that are raised. And yes, this is the outcome. This is the final. This is the doing the last thing first. This is letting everyone know what it is you're here to expect. If you joined the webinar, you had only 2 minutes to check out what I was going to say. You can leave now knowing you've got the answer. Now, obviously, there's more to this and more to why this works, that which we're going to be unpacking today. But ultimately, as we're going to see, if you focus on building trust in your answers, I believe, and what I've seen is you're going to start to see a significant uh, improvement in the outcome of your conversations, ultimately more closed won deals. Now, I don't expect you to believe me. If you believe me and you could walk away very happy with what I presented so far, I don't think this would be a very successful webinar because this could have been just a very simple LinkedIn post. um, so instead, we're going to actually dig into this. And I will, as Sammy has said, I will be getting to questions at the very end. So if you have questions or things that you're like, oh, I'd like you to unpack that a little bit more, or maybe you have an objection that you want to raise about this, please throw that in the Q&A and we'll get to it at the very end. But let's look at this first from the other perspective, some of the other answers that I saw. Again, not bad answers, but let's take a look at it, what it means coming at it from the other direction. The typical answer is that when someone asks a question, what we think of at first glance, what seems logical is it's our job to build confidence in our product, right? For someone to see our product in the right light. In fact, some of those answers in Menti were to that effect. It's not a bad answer, a bad answer. Now, don't feel bad if that was the answer that you gave. Like, it's a logical answer because it actually fits with a lot of our traditional selling processes that we have in place today, lead us towards when a question is asked, how to answer it in a way that paints your product in the right light. Here's how the hierarchy of thinking typically goes with these sales processes. We want the customer to purchase our product. In order to do that, we have to first get them to understand the business value that something like what we do even adds, right? Then second, we have to convince them that we are the best product that does that thing that adds business value. And third, we need to convince them why there's some compelling event to buy our product now to solve that business need that they have, right? This is your classic what, why, and why now. And is fundamental to many, sales training philosophies. I've been through so many sales trainings that have this kind of at its core, maybe using different words one way or the other, but this is at the core of a lot of sales training processes. However, I think this is fundamentally flawed. This is sort of the hot take. I'm saying all those sales training things that your CRO has spent a lot of money on have some critical flaws in them. It has actually one very critical flaw in it that gets ignored with most of these processes that focus on educating someone with why you're the best and why they need to buy it now. And it's this: you're not selling to a company. You're not selling your software, your services, or your hardware, or your product to Acme Inc. You're selling to a person at Acme Inc. And companies don't buy software, but people do. People are making the decision of whether or not they want to buy that thing you're selling. And I actually have been in the scenario when someone, those three things, the what, the why, and the why now. The customer got the what, they got the why, and they got the why now. Like, we were definitely check, check, check on all three things, and they didn't buy from us. What would cause someone to believe that they need what you sell, that you're the best version of what you sell, and that there's a reason to buy it now, but they wouldn't buy it? Now, you already know the answer because we've been talking about it, but it's ultimately it comes down to a lack of trust. And that's exactly the situation I had a few years back, where we had a customer that they definitely saw the need. They believed in what it was that we were doing. We were, in their eyes, the best solution from all the ones that they'd evaluated. They evaluated a large number of solutions, and they wanted to buy it right now, but they ultimately ended up going with one of our competitors. Our competitor, who they told us didn't solve the need as well for them and actually cost them more money. And the reason that they gave us was specifically that they did not trust that we were being truthful and honest with them, that we were being a little bit manipulative, and they didn't trust us. They didn't buy from us. They bought from our competitor who they did trust, even though in their evaluation, the product and the solution that they were going to get would not have been as good, which is really interesting because you'd think people are going to be extremely logical and just go, I just need to evaluate the product based upon the product, but we don't. And I'm going to get to actually why this makes sense and why it's more logical than it seems while I'm just explaining this story, right? You can get every green check mark, though, keep that in mind, and still not get the sale. So we need to add something else. And the trust is that missing piece that we need to be focused on. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what's this have to do with, objection handling and discovery? I'm getting to that, trust me. I'm getting that. Just hang on. We're getting to the topic of the meeting, but this is a very important foundation in order to understand what I'm about to present around how to handle those objections and questions that you get. Let's think about your traditional opportunity engagement and how that runs today. If you're like most companies that I've interacted with and that I've actually been a part of for a lot of my career as well, the prospect see a demo, which is normally that button in the top right-hand side of your screen. They click that, and unless that company has consensus, they're likely going to be brought to a form they're going to fill out, and it's going to piss off the customer because they actually wanted to see a demo. Plug here for consensus. Please do check them out, goconsensus.com. Thank you for hosting the webinar. If you don't see that, you're going to end up having a conversation with the AE and BDR where they're going to be doing discovery questions. Do you have budget? Is this something that you want to do now? What's the size of your opportunity? How much money you're willing to spend? All those typical qualification questions. And we're going to hop in and do discovery about trying to understand what the actual need is that they have. What's the pain that you have that you're feeling today? Those types of things. And we're going to do a demo to them where we're going to tell them all about us, how we solve all those problems, and maybe offer a POC to prove that we can solve those problems. And then the customer is going to sign. All along the way, it's been learning about the customer so that we can better address and tell them everything we need to know in order for them to believe us. The assumption that we're making, though, is that they're going to believe us just because we're saying it, which, if you think about that for a second, someone who has something to gain by you believing what they say is not someone who you naturally are going to trust until that trust has been earned. But this is exactly what we do. For whatever reason, our traditional sales processes don't focus on this critical step of identifying if we've even earned the right to say anything. We just hop right in assuming that trust is already naturally going to be there because we're salespeople. And the reasons why we do this, though, kind of make a little bit of sense when you dig into the underlying how hard it is to actually build trust. To build trust, you have to ignore the building product confidence side of the equation. You can make any statement that you want in a sales opportunity, and you can either use that statement to build trust, or you can use that statement to build confidence. You can't do both at the same time. You can't say our software is the best thing since sliced bread and have someone go, oh, great, I trust you more because you said that. Like that's not how it works. Conversely, if you say something like, actually, no, our product doesn't do that, the product confidence will probably not be going up with that statement, but someone might trust what you're saying more because you're willing to admit that. This is why it's so difficult, because we tend to focus so much on the what, the why, and the why now. Building product confidence, building value through what we do, et cetera, and why we're the best thing you need to purchase. Everything we're taught to demo, everything we're taught to talk about in front of our customers is about building product confidence. And so building trust, you have to kind of abandon that because you got to spend so much time building product confidence. But unfortunately, this is a logical statement. Someone will only believe what you say after they trust anything you say could even be believed, right? You know this to be very true. This is, in the US here, an election year. And so politicians are kind of at the forefront of everything else. And if you know a politician, I'm sure you can think of a few people who you don't trust, what they say, no matter what they say, no matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what those people are going to say, the people who you can't trust. You're not going to believe a word that they say because trust isn't there. You have to have a foundation of trust in order for someone to even believe that what you say could be true. Uh, this is something that, I don't need to be a philosopher or an expert on human interactions for you to know that it's true. But yet let's, okay, bring it back to the way we handle things in meetings. We walk in, we've got this, our company logo behind us, we've got our NASCAR slides, we've got all our customer references, we've got everything else, and we just assume that because we're there saying something, people are going to trust that what we say is actually the truth. This used to work a little bit, maybe a long time ago, kind of pre-post COVID. Wow, pre-COVID. I was about to say pre-post COVID. Pre-COVID, maybe this worked better than it does now, but buyers are more educated. Buyers are more self-actualized. They've done a lot of learning on their own, and they frankly just aren't going to trust you just because you're a representative of your company and you have 7 years of experience. That's not a reason why someone wants to trust you. More of a case in point example of that, there actually was a very recent article on Chief Martech. I work in Martech, so that's the reason why I came across this. If you search Chief Martech, I believe this actually is the top post, the top blog post on their site right now. It's all about people going through the buying process for marketing technology software. And they polled them and asked them questions about different sources of information. What's their level of trust with these sources if they've used them? Was it helpful, not helpful, and they didn't trust it? This right here, what I'm showing was one slice of one type of source, and actually ended up being the source that by a factor of 2 had the largest red slice of not helpful / don't trust. Any guesses on what source that was? Yeah, it was the sales team. People trust a blog post written by the marketing team on your company website 2 to 3 times more than they trust you as a seller walking into the room saying anything. Like, you are extremely untrustworthy just by being who you are. Now, if you look at that article, yes, solutions consultants ended up being more trustworthy because, I mean, come on, we're more trustworthy, I guess. But your sales team in general is not a trusted source of information. You don't walk in the door being trusted, right? So if we go back and think about that, we have an opportunity to build trust or confidence when we're answering any question or objection that gets asked. And we focus so much on confidence because we assume the trust is there, but it's not. We really need to be focusing on trust, because that is how you end up building product confidence. Let's think about that actual specific thing. Think of someone who you trust more than anyone else. Could be a parent, spouse, sibling, best friend, right? If they told you, hey, this product here, you got to check it out, it changed my life. If you think about them saying that, your confidence in that product probably went up, unless they're a known conspiracy theorist person, which is a whole different story. But imagine that it's okay. Your product confidence slightly went up, but even in that scenario, you probably aren't trusting them more, but your product confidence went up because that trust already exists, right? A real life example of this is I got solar panels installed recently. I live in Las Vegas, where we had an awful summer. It hit 120 degrees this year, which is absolutely crazy. And in the summer, I'm not exaggerating, your electricity bills can go up to like 7 times what it is in the winter. It's awful. We got solar panels, love it, already saving money. And the company that we got them will offer a referral if we refer someone else. And no, this is not me here pitching you on there. I'm not going to tell you who it was. So that's not what this is about. However, I was talking to my in-laws, who also live here in Vegas, and they knew that, one, we got solar panels. They were asking us about it, and they know that we get a referral if we refer somebody. But I told them, I don't think they're right for you, because I don't think you plan on staying in this house long enough to get your investment back. Now, I could have told them, just go for it. Solar panels are great, blah, 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 and et cetera. And they may have considered the solar panels because they trust me. But me making the statement of, you should just go for it, they're great, could not have increased my trust with them. In fact, because they know that I would get something out of it, it's possible the trust would have even possibly gone down. Now, interestingly enough, they ended up actually buying the solar panels because they do trust what I say. And so me telling them all the facts, including the negative things, didn't remove their confidence in the product itself. The principle is this: you can build enough trust, and this is what you're aiming for. You can build enough trust that you can say something negative about your product, the customer is going to forget to lower their confidence, right? This is the power of building trust with your customers. You want to get to the point where someone believes in that what, why, and why now, right? You want someone to get to the point where they believe that your product is the right thing and need to buy it now. If you've built enough trust, they're going to believe what you say. They're going to believe in you. They're going to believe in what you're telling them. And that's going to have a lot more weight than you just constantly talking about all the great things about your product before you've built any trust for that to stand on. Another visual example of this, which refrigerator would you buy if you had to buy from the person on the left or from your best friend on the right, who you can trust? Yes, the one on the left looks better. And I know a lot of people buy refrigerators based on how it looks, but trust me, I wouldn't buy from the guy on the left no matter what I thought about the fridge because I'm not sure if I am being swindled, right? And this is the choice that we're offering our customers today. We can choose to have the best product and be someone who's not trustworthy, or we can choose to build trust and let them see the product for what it is. And hopefully, since we actually believe we have good product, your product won't look as, budget as maybe the fridge on the right, right? But if we're peeling all that back, what this really means, we're getting back now to the actual webinar conversation, right? You're getting a question, you're getting an objection in a webinar. Here's what this means if we think about, all right, we need to focus more on building trust first. It's not your job to build product confidence when you answer a question that's being raised, right? We are here to close deals. We're not here when we're doing a demo, we're having a presentation, we're in a meeting. We are not in that meeting. The goal of that meeting is not the customer left having a better opinion of our product. No, the goal of the deal is we want to get closer to a closed one. Building more trust gets you a lot further towards a closed one than building incremental product confidence does. So it's not your job to build product confidence when answering a question. It's your job instead to build trust with your customers. All right. So now we got the foundation. You might still not believe me. You might still have questions. I gave you kind of the whirlwind tour, trying to get you up to speed of a lot of things that I've been exploring and reading and changing about my opinion of how to handle things over the past probably 3 or 4 years on this topic. So if you have questions about this, answer in the Q&A. I'll happy to dive into specific examples or go more into some of the things that I've talked about here. But now that we've got this foundation out of the way, now that hopefully you're starting to see a little bit for yourself when I'm talking about building trust, let's move into what happens when you actually get questions. Because once you discover that you no longer need to convince, you can now start to use your objections to engage. This is about turning objections into discovery after all. This is about changing questions into a more engaging meeting. If you attended my how to demo in 5 minutes session, either at DemoFest X West Coast earlier this year, or in the webinar that I held a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and contact me if you want to get a link to that. I can send that to you as well. You know that the top thing you need to be focusing on in your presentations is driving more engagement. This is kind of what we discussed. We all discovered together during that session. Objections is the same way. You want to use those moments to drive more engagement with your customer, to do more discovery, to get in, to have them be a part of the meeting more than you just talking. That's what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to build trust and drive engagement at the same time. In order to do that, I need you all to stop doing something. Stop answering questions. We have this tendency as experts to want to hear a question and want to answer it. I'm not the first one who's mentioned this. I'm not the first one to have brought this up. But please, please, when you hear a question, stop wanting to jump to an answer. There's a checklist you need to go through before you do this to make sure that you even are doing that in the right way, or it's even the right time to answer the question. So first off, when you hear a question, I don't know if you need to have a picture of a stop sign taped to your monitor to say, stop answering questions, whether it's a screenshot of this, I don't know. Stop answering the question straight off. And instead, let's go through a little bit of a checklist to get to what we need to do before we answer any objections or questions so that we can turn them into discovery. First, we need to ask, why are they asking the question? This is probably the most difficult one, but the one that I think you can become an expert on pretty quickly once you get some practice under your belt. Why are they asking the question? You need to get to this before you can even do anything else with what's happening. This is probably the most critical thing. Once you understand the why they're asking the question, you need to know, Why is what they're asking important? Or is it even important? Or what's the importance of it? What weight do I need to put on it? And finally, what's this person's level of influence in the evaluation? Stated more differently, why this question, what's important, and who are you anyways, right? Who's asking the question and how do I handle it based upon who they are? And I'm going to lean upon some industry expertise beyond myself as well for a couple of this as well. So be ready for that. But let's go into the first question. I'm going to get some more audience participation here. It's been about 20 minutes since the last one. We're going to hop into Mentee again. Why this question? So here's another Mentee code. So go back there, scan it again. What I want to know is, what are some reasons why someone would even ask a question during a presentation or demonstration? What are the reasons why someone, if you put yourself in your customer's shoes and they're asking a question, why are they answering the question? So scan the QR code there, or go to mentee.com. If I flip over to the answer, you'll see the same thing. The code's on the top, the QR code is still there. What are the reasons why someone would ask a question during a presentation? Because there's more than one. There's more than one. So let's give it a second for these questions to come in while I grab a sip of water here. To get more info, need to know. It always takes a little bit for this thing. And then all of a sudden they start coming all at once. This is great. Curiosity. Ooh, a detractor. We've all had those, right? We've had someone who just asks a question because they want to throw you off base. Need to know, interest in the product, important to them. They're comparing. Could be that, yeah, they're comparing it to something else they've seen. They want to challenge you. Yeah, like the stump the chump, right? Type of a thing. Getting a couple on curiosity, more on curiosity, because they're confused. Like, absolutely. Could be they just don't know what you were talking about. That could be some of you throwing questions in the Q&A. Jack, what are you talking about? I'm not understanding what you mean. Could be some of you right now with your Q&A as well. Clarity, more confused. Absolutely. Look, there's a lot here. And none of these are wrong. These are all exactly why people ask questions. And if you don't know why the question you just got asked is being asked, you can't answer their question, right? If someone is just curious, the way you answer needs to be different than someone who's trying to trying to like be a detractor. This will be different from someone who's confused. Will be different for someone who has a personal pain point or a current pain point that hasn't been addressed yet. Yeah, you need to understand that. I do have a tip for you. A quick little hint is that if you get asked a question and you start, because you're going to start to form an answer. I can't stop you from doing that. Excuse me. You're going to start to form an answer in your mind. But if your answer in your mind starts with the phrase, it depends, it means you don't know why it's being asked. You've not fully understood the specific thing that they're trying to get at is not clear to you. Because if your answer to their question has multiple meanings, multiple levels of detail, lots of different things that you could answer. And so your question, well, it depends, because if meaning one, that could mean these 5 details. The other way it could be looking at is if you do this way. Until you have clarity enough to get to this, oh, I'm not showcasing this. I was, you know what? I had an it depends slide. I wasn't flipping back and forth. You know what? This is called real life demo mistakes. There we go. Here we go. If you have lots of questions in meeting, you need to get down to which meaning and which detail before you can even begin to want to answer. So that it depends. That's your hint. I don't know yet. I need to get more information. Second thing, what's so important about this question? You need to know what's so important about the question being asked. Is it relevant? And most importantly, is this a new requirement we haven't heard yet? I saw this actually in the Mentee response. Someone had said that there's maybe a current pain or issue that hasn't been addressed yet. When someone's asking a question, often you can uncover gaps in the discovery that you had done. This is actually a key component that I pulled out of Peter Cohen's more recent book, Doing Discovery. If you haven't picked that up yet, I do recommend doing that. He addresses pretty well that discovery is questions that are asked are often a time where you need to go back and revisit discovery, right? And this is very much what this step here is so driving at. Is this a new requirement that's being addressed that you need to handle? You need to understand the importance of this question in order to know how you begin to answer it. And the first step there, is it even relevant? If you're in a meeting of full of business users and someone asks a security question, it might not be relevant to your current conversation because that's going to change how you go about dealing with the question being asked as well. So this is something you at least need to understand. The third one, I'm going to lean into another book here, this book by Chris White. QR code there if you've not read Six Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers yet, you can pick that one up with that link there. You need to understand, who the heck are you? Who's the person even asking? If this is your key stakeholder or economic buyer or even champion or whatever it is asking this question, probably something that you are more likely to address. So this is a person who has no influence whatsoever. They're bringing up a question, especially if the question is irrelevant. Maybe it's something that you dismiss rather than addressing directly. Chris's book, he actually describes like a whole chart and grid about how to answer stuff based upon the relevance and importance of the person in the meeting and the relevance of it to what you're talking about. So I'm not going to spoil that. Please do check that out there. But you need to understand the who someone is before you can begin to answer. Okay. So there's your checklist. You've got the why someone's asking, right? You need to get to that. The what and the who. You now might not know those questions. You've done the checklist in your mind. You might now say, hey, well, there's some things around the why I don't know, but I understand the what and understand the who, or maybe some combination of that. And now you're ready to answer the question by asking a question first. Like I said, likely you don't know the answers to that checklist. This is where you start to build engagement. The checklist that you went through is what will help you understand what question you can ask back that's going to add meaning to the conversation rather than just being a question that you ask back. If you need a clarification, if you need to understand, there's a couple ways this could be going. Were you referring to this or this one? Or what's your understanding of that scenario you gave, right? This is the time that you can do that. And also understanding the relevance, understanding if maybe there's something that's important that we haven't addressed before, you could be very specifically probing about that. However, I will say, even if you don't know a specific question you want to ask, you should still ask a question back in this moment, because the goal of someone asking a question, getting someone to ask a question, is, again, we're trying to drive that engagement. We're trying to use it as a point where we can start to build trust with the customer. The way that we do that is by helping them to understand that we know what they're asking so we can answer in a more meaningful way. A couple go-tos that I have used over the past few years that never fail me are one of these two. How are you doing that today? Or can you give me an example of what you mean by that? When you're doing this and asking them these questions, most people are very willing to hop in and give you exactly what you're asking for, so long as you're being very pointed about what you're asking and it's very relevant, and you're not asking a confusing question back. Again, if you've heard my previous workshop or webinar, you know that the main thing you're looking for in your demonstration is this engagement. The more opportunities you have to get people to talk, which they're often willing to do, the better your meetings are. And specifically, what you're doing here so far is someone's asked an objection, and you are going through the checklist, understanding everything about it, understanding what question to ask back. You're asking a question back, and this will hopefully spur a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a conversation. And what you do next is now the crux on how you can build trust through what you're doing. Because up to this point, they asked a question which, in their mind, was a simple question. Every customer thinks every question they ask is a simple question. I know, because I was a customer. Every question I asked, I thought was a very easy to answer question. And I got very annoyed if people didn't answer my question. But I was fine if they needed clarification. I would provide the clarification. That's what you're doing. What you do next after this back and forth, where now you understand the why, you understand the meaning, you understand the detail, you understand the relevance, the importance. We've gone through the discovery that we've done. You have to give a simple answer. This is the step to building trust, especially if it's a no. What you've done is sought to understand exactly what a customer has meant by something that they've asked, rather than assuming. You're not trying to paint their question in your best light, but rather make sure it's within their context, and then answer very simply so they can understand, yes, we can do that. No, we can't. Or the way that we handle it is this. Depends on what the type of question is, right? Customers want to feel understood, which is a key component to building trust. If you've gone through and someone's asked a question, you sought to understand, you wanted more clarification, then you come back with a no. Let's think about what just happened. A lot of times when customers hear you as a salesperson asking questions and trying to get more, trying to dig deeper into what they think is a simple question. What's going through their mind is, they can't do it. They're just trying to stall for time. Then you come back and you say, now I understand exactly what you're saying. And no, we can't do that. Wow. Oh, so you wanted to make sure you really knew that you couldn't do it before you asked. That's interesting. Like that's a trustworthy thing to actually do, to make sure you fully understand before you answer my question or assume you can answer my question. I've been running objection handling and discovery this way for about the past 3 years. And it's been amazing to see the process at the end, because there have definitely been times when I get through going through the checklist, understanding the what and the why if someone's asking a question, who they are, making sure it's a relevant thing, engaging them getting them to talk and ask questions, uncovering new things we haven't uncovered before, and getting to the point where I've had to say, no, unfortunately, what you're looking for is not something that we do within our product. And when you've gone through this process, I think you'll be amazed at what starts to happen because you've been focusing on building trust with them during this kind of back and forth engagement. When you get to that point of answering no, I've gotten this back more often than not. I'll say, no, we can't do that. They say, okay, well, how would you recommend we handle that? Or I had someone say, you know what, that's okay. I don't really think that's important to us anyways. Right. I had a customer that very specifically had a deal breaker according to them. They had told us to follow this thing is a deal breaker, so we want you to definitely cover like that's something not a deal. They didn't call it a deal breaker, but it was like a key requirement. I forget how they specifically called it. To us, we understood that that's a deal breaker for them. We called it that because it was going to break our deal because we definitely couldn't do the thing that they were saying that they needed. Our plan was to shift them to other things that were really important, trying to get them to see that actually you don't need this piece because this can be handled many other ways. Like we're trying to kind of challenge them a little bit in that. That was our plan walking into the meeting. But before we could get to that, we walk in and like almost out of the gate, the customer's like, okay, can you do this? Like they were just, I want to get to the, get right to the issue and make sure we're very much answering my questions and getting to the things that I need. And I was like, well, there's no way around it. I asked for clarification, asked them to give me an example of exactly what they're looking for so I could answer it correctly. They did. At the end, I said, no, I'm sorry. That's not something that we can do. We have most of our customers go about doing it a different way that if you're interested, I could show you. But if this is something that specifically, this is something you definitely need, then we're not the right solution for you. They came back and said, no, please do show me everything else because I'm not ready to dismiss you just based upon you not having this one feature, right? Customers value you being very straightforward and honest and trustworthy with them. And it's upon that trust you get the opportunity to have that further engagement, the conversation, and eventually win the deal like we did in that case. We actually did end up winning that deal, which was really nice. We took someone from the point of we don't have a critical piece that is a must have on their end to them believing that we add the most value. And primarily because I think they trusted us, right? They knew that everything we said we could do because the thing that we said we couldn't do was something they told us was their number one requirement. I mean, if that's not a trust building moment, I don't know what is, right? It just shows you that how important that is in your discovery, right? This is the process. This is the ultimate process, right? You got an objection, you got a question. Seek to understand first. Build trust in how you answering simply with a simple yes or simple no, making clear what you're saying you can do, and building differentiation. Not differentiation in your product, right? This is not me saying doing this, your product's going to stand out. Most software, honestly, if you really look at it, most software is going to be very similar to each other. There's probably one or more of your competitors does something very similar to you, right? When it really comes down to it. I know we all don't like hearing that because we all feel like our software is the best. I get that, but not from the customer's perspective. The differentiation I'm meaning here is you, the seller, who they trust. You are what is differentiated in this process, right? Everyone else has all these features, but no one else has a you who spent the time to build trust with them. That's going to be more valuable in their evaluation. Having someone on a sales team they can trust, mind blowing, right? Absolutely mind blowing and game changing. And I've seen it work time and time again. So I do challenge you to think about this, right? You're going towards building trust first, right? As a key takeaway, right? It's not your job to build product confidence when you're answering an objection. It's your job to sell. And in order to sell, the key thing is actually building trust. Keeping in mind, again, your statement can either build confidence or build trust, but not both at the same time. So which are you going to choose when push comes to shove? Do you have enough trust built that you can make a product confidence building statement and have them believe you? Or are you too early in that? Have you not built trust yet? You need to build trust first before you can do that. And finally, trust can cover product gaps, or product competence can't cover missing trust, right? Example I gave at the very beginning. Someone will go with someone they trust more, even if they believe your product is right. I've seen that happen to myself and to others as well. So you have to focus on that. So we're about to hop into the Q&A. So if you have a question that's come up, please do hop in, throw a question there, throw your objection about why I'm wrong. I don't mind being wrong. Be interesting if you find something, honestly, if you got something completely stump me, would absolutely love for you to hop in and stump me. But before so, I'm going to do a not so shameless plug. I do have a podcast called Beyond Pre-Sales, relatively new podcast. We explore everything about who you are as an individual outside of your day job that makes you great at life and great at who you are as a seller. Had some great conversations so far. We got about 5 episodes live right now, in the middle of an interview conversation with Matthew James. And so do check that out at podcast.beyondpresales.xyz. So enough shameless promotion. Let's stop the sharing here. And Sammy, what have we got for questions so far in the Q&A?
Someone just asked in the chat if you could throw the book recommendations that you had. Revisit those, maybe.
Yes. I'll just type them out here. There was the 6 habits of highly effective sales engineers. Chris White is one of them. Another one I mentioned was Doing Discovery by Peter Cochran. And there's a third one, which is The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. That one I didn't mention. I thought after, well, I was getting ready for it this morning. I was like, I didn't throw that in there. So I'm glad someone asked. The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. That's not Stephen Covey you're thinking of, but Stephen Covey's son, Stephen Covey. But if you look up The Speed of Trust, fantastic book on actually building trust. Was changed the way I think about building trust with my customers as well. So yes, Pam, Speed of Trust is fantastic. Great book. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, what else have we got, Sammy?
We don't have a lot of questions right now. You were just so thorough, everyone. Looks like
Okay.
if you guys do have questions, okay, we go. Is there another way to build trust besides saying you don't have a particular functionality if your software doesn't meet all the business needs? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. No, I love this. I love this. I wasn't probably as explicit. It means I wasn't as explicit as I needed to be on this. Yes, one way you can obviously build trust is by saying something that someone would perceive as painting your product in negative light. That's going to build trust because someone's like, oh, why would you do that? Because that could potentially be damaging to you. Another way that you build trust is by making sure that someone feels understood in a meeting. And that's the whole point of trying to ask those clarifying questions. Let's put yourself in the shoes of trying to buy some software, and you've got some specific things that you're trying to get. If someone kind of bulldozes you and doesn't really listen to what you say, or based on what you say, they don't adjust what they're doing or what they're saying or what they're talking about, you're not going to trust them. But if instead they take the time to really understand what it is you're looking for, and then specifically just show you the things that matter to you, that's a trust building experience right there. So the whole point of the back and forth and the questions and making sure that someone feels understood is a trust building exercise. So during that, you're doing a lot of that understanding, a lot of that making sure you get what someone's talking about to build trust, so that your answer, if it is a yes, hopefully is built on that trust of understanding that you built.
Awesome. Love that. I just reposted the books. Someone asked about the books again. I think you had sent that just to me on accident,
Oh
but
yeah, I just sent that to you. Thank you for
I
reposting
forwarded
that.
it to the group at large. Um, cool. Well, I'm not sure
You know,
if we have any other
if
questions.
if we don't, that's fine. And also I'll say this for people who may be watching the actual webinar in replay. If you have questions for me, please do either reach out to me on LinkedIn, ask me a question, or honestly, repost this webinar link on your own LinkedIn feed and say, hey, Jack, answer this question because here's one that wasn't answered, and happy to hop into your thread and start the conversation there as well. Lots of ways to reach out if you have any questions on this afterwards as well.
Awesome. Somebody asked, should we open up a whiteboard for an objection clarification?
I guess I'll use a little bit of the principle here. What do you mean by opening up a whiteboard? What would the whiteboard be doing? Doing a little bit of my own best practices here, even in this Q&A here, to explain the flow, to explain their flow of their product. Are you referring to like what we're talking about here, or like in a customer meeting? Maybe misunderstanding what you mean of our product. Okay, so you should open up a whiteboard for objection clarification to explain the flow of your product. Using whiteboards anytime is a good exercise if it helps to paint a more clear picture. What also can be very helpful with a whiteboard, especially if you're in person, what using a whiteboard would be fantastic because you can start to draw it out and say, do I have this correct? And then offer them the marker to correct what you may not have done right. Because again, you're trying to get them more engaged in the conversation. You're seeking to understand. So that's a great way to do that when you're trying to get that clarification. Zoom whiteboards, sometimes people don't understand that they can hop in and do it, but same idea here where you can draw something out and say, hey, I've drawn out your process here and how our product fits with that. Is this what you had meant? And then just make sure that you are fully representing in your drawing what they were asking.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, every time I'm like, oh, well, there's another one. So I love it. Keep asking a question. Do you find that more sales tend to occur where trust or confidence is highest, middle of the road, or different per client?
You tend to find more sales tend to occur where trust or confidence is highest on the road. I mean, from what I've seen, if you have high trust and high product confidence, usually the only thing that gets in the way of that is budget or timing. Because there's no reason why someone who has trust in your product, high confidence in your product to do what it says it's going to do, and they see the value in that and they trust you, I've never seen a deal go south or go to a competitor in those cases, right? Other than things related to budget or related to maybe things outside of your control, like layoffs, etc. If I had to pick a middle of the road, right? If I had to pick, okay, you can't maybe get trust or product confidence all the way up. I have seen mid-grade product confidence with high trust close deals more often than middle of the road trust, high product confidence. I've seen people jump in and say, I like what you're talking about. I like the things you're talking about. Let's just go for it. People willing to kind of take a chance because they believe you're being honest with them and what you're saying. So if you had to focus on one of the two, that's again where I would push more towards that trust side if you had to pick one to be middle of the road.
Love it. I totally agree. Okay. Well, if you guys have any more questions, or if you're watching the recording, like Jack said, you can always go back and scan his QR code. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. Jack, I just want to thank you so much for lending us your time and expertise on the webinar today. We hope to see all of you at DemoFest X in London and New York City in the next couple months. And we hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.